Hello, that biotech guy here again. So in the previous videos we have been preparing the farm, and then we have reached a point where we have to decide which birds we are going to bring in, either layers, broilers, local, or broilers. So in this video we shall be discussing the different points to note, and then we shall make up our minds on what birds we have to stock and why. Here we are not going to look at the broilers and the local. I'll make a separate video why we did not take that, in case you people are interested. If you want to know, leave a comment in the comment section so that I can make that video for you. Here we shall be comparing the layers and the broilers, and as you see, our farm is a small one, so we are assuming that whoever would want to start would have limited resources. So in such a space we would be discussing which one is best to work with in such a condition. Let's begin. So, simple question. We have to choose between the broilers and the layers. But before we jump into that, let's first ask ourselves, what are broilers and what are layers? Let's start with the layers. Layers are birds that have the ability to generate quick and produce and lay eggs faster than other birds that are not layers. This is because they carry the genes for that. Genes are the reasons why maybe in living organisms different things surface. The genes you carry dictate the production rate of the chicken. So whereby layers have high genes for egg formation. That means like they can form the eggs quicker, and on average it's about 26 hours. Every 26 hours they form an egg on average. So there's this misconception that broilers are GMOs. I haven't yet found any paper confirming, though in some studies they suggest some gene editing has been done onto certain species, but not all of them. And broilers are not like a single species of chicken, so there are different species under broilers. Broilers are kind of like a type. So under broilers there are different species. Broilers are just like layers. These are birds that were made through selective breeding for generations, and they possess extraordinary genes for feed conversion into meat. That is why in a very short time the broiler would have gained a lot of weight, because it easily converts the feed into the meat that is deposited within the body. As for the layers, they convert the feed into the eggs. So that is a broiler, that is a layer. Now let's get into the details of which one we are going to choose and why. If we are saying that the broilers and layers have extraordinary genes, what do we mean? A gene is a basic unit of inheritance that is defined biologically. So let me try explaining. It is a little obvious to us that if two tall parents, a tall dad and a tall mom, gave birth to an offspring, there are very high chances that the child is also going to be tall. Now that is because the child possesses the gene for height from both parents. Now that is what the broilers possess. If, for example, broilers, the meat conversion, the feed conversion into meat is the height we previously discussed, whereby a tall parent and a tall parent gave birth to a tall child. So these broilers are birds that have been selectively bred over generations to form birds that carry those genes for quick feed conversion. And the layers are also birds that have been selectively bred to carry the genes for feed conversion into egg formation. That is why it could give an egg almost daily. But this does not mean the broilers don't lay eggs. The broilers do lay eggs. And if you're interested to know why people don't keep broilers for eggs when they can sell the eggs and have the meat too, you could leave a question in the comment section. I'll get back to you. So I have a point that is a little contradictory on the reasons why somebody would choose layers or broilers for a specific part. For instance, if we are looking at the space, we are using a small space and we are going to bring in broilers. Now there are two different ways you could calculate this. You could say, I'm going to bring in my broilers and every after 6 weeks I'll be releasing. Or you could say, I'm going to bring in my layers and keep them for 1 year, and from about 17 weeks every day I'm selling eggs. So that is dependent on to what you decide. But then what you need to know is with broilers, it is quicker to grow and the loss is a little less since you have a limited capital. But then the layers, it would require some information, and remember, not all are laying eggs. So if you have about 50 layers, you may not really bring out the money properly. But if you could have a farm of about 200, because remember, not all of them are laying, there are some males within. So it means you might have a production rate of about 70-60% that are laying. That means like if you have 200, 60% are laying eggs. Those would be like the total number of eggs collected in a day. So you'd find that if you have a small number of layers, it will not really bring out the money. And for that reason, that is the major reason we are going to be looking at the broilers first. And another reason why we want the broilers is we want a quick way to first demonstrate the whole procedure in the video. So if you're interested in that, hit the subscribe button, share this video with your other friends and family so that they may join. And by the time we bring in, because we've done the videos of cleaning and what, they're all on the channel. If you missed them, you could check in the playlists created on the channel playlist. You see the previous videos. So on this, we are choosing which birds we are going to bring, and we are going to side with the broilers for now. Stick around to know why we chose the broilers, not the layers. When choosing the birds, you have to decide on the purpose you're into this business. Now, there are people that are into this business to maybe give out meat. You want to produce meat. In your area, the demand is meat. There are people whereby the demand is eggs. So you need to decide which birds. So by looking at the market, it determines which birds you're going to keep. You're either going to keep broilers because the market demands meat, or you're going to keep layers because the market demands eggs. So that is reason one. Reason two is the growth rate and the capital availability, whereby a person with a limited capital base could look at maybe funding broilers for 6 weeks, because 6 weeks they'll be ready for the market, and yet 6 weeks layers are not even halfway the point of starting to lay eggs. By 6 weeks the layers are not yet even halfway starting to lay eggs. Now that is where our challenge is, whereby if you have capital availability, you jump into layers and know I'll feed them for 17 weeks before I start getting eggs. But with a limited capital, it would be advisable to go in for broilers. By the time the other person's first layer lays an egg, here you will have restocked almost twice with broilers. So another issue is the disease management and vaccination, whereby broilers are sold off at about 6 weeks, and layers you're going to keep them around for 1 year. So the risk involved in disease management and vaccination is very low for broilers if put on a scale with layers, because there are diseases that start occurring after even 6 weeks. By after 6 weeks, the broiler might have already been consumed long time ago. It means they do not have the chance to suffer from such diseases. That means even if you are a careless person, there are less chances of messing up due to biosecurity issues with broilers as compared to layers, because layers you're going to keep them for a long time, and broilers, there are few vaccinations to be done. But with layers you need booster doses, you need maybe those other diseases, because they are there for quite some time. One thing we are assuming, like if this farm is being put up by a total beginner, it wouldn't really be a good thing to start with layers if you are a total beginner and you're jumping into this business. This is my opinion. It is okay if you want to, but this is my opinion. In every business there is a try and error period, whereby with broilers you would be releasing in 6 weeks. Now with layers you will start releasing eggs at like 17 weeks and then release the birds at like 1 year something, whereby it's a very slow gradual process to learn with layers as compared to broilers, because broilers, every after, let's approximate that you kept the birds for 6 weeks and got market for 2 weeks and cleaned up the place and what, it means every after 2 months you can be restocking. It means the more you're restocking, the more you're learning, the more you're growing in the information space. Whereas with layers, the next time when you learn on this batch, the next time you're restocking to learn is the next year, and that could be a very slow gradual process. So if you are a total beginner, it is advisable you start with the broilers. So once you bring in maybe 2-3 batches and you know how to do the brooding, especially the first 2 weeks, if you can handle them well, then you can jump into the layers in the next batch, and then you see how the future goes. However, in a small space where a cage can fit, the layers would be a better option, because the cage system, you'll find a cage system that holds about 130 birds is possible to fit in a smaller space than space required for broilers. That is one pro the layers would have over the broilers.